Have you ever met someone who could ruin your entire mood with a single word? Someone whose voice, expression, or attitude could flip a switch inside you, and suddenly calm turns into chaos. You don't plan to react. You don't want to lose control, but something deep inside you rises up like fire, and before you know it, you've become the very thing you swore you'd never be. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That one sentence hides the secret to peace. Because what if the person who makes you angry isn't the cause of your emotion, but the mirror reflecting what still lives inside you? When someone disrespects you, it feels personal. When someone lies, your blood burns. When someone ignores your worth, it feels like a direct attack. But pause for a second. Is it really them? Or is it something they've awakened in you? Jung called this projection. It's the mind's way of throwing its hidden emotions onto someone else, so we can fight them instead of facing ourselves. We all carry a shadow, the parts of us we refuse to see, old wounds, insecurities, shame, fear. They hide beneath the surface, buried under the roles we play every day. And when someone's behavior touches that buried place, anger erupts. Not because they re-powerful, but because they touched the part of you that isn't healed yet. Think about the last time you were truly angry. Maybe someone insulted you. Maybe you felt unseen. Maybe you felt powerless. Now ask yourself, was your reaction really about that moment? Or was it about every time in your life you felt the same way? That's what the unconscious does. It pulls the pain of the past into the present and uses other people as screens to project your unfinished story. You're not angry at them. You're angry at the wound they reminded you of. Jung believed that every emotion carries a message. Anger isn't evil. It's not something to destroy. It's a signal, a call to awareness. When you feel that fire rising, instead of reacting, ask, what is this anger trying to show me? Maybe it's showing you where you still feel small. Maybe it's revealing that you crave respect, validation, or love you never received. Maybe it's showing you that you've been silent for too long. Anger is the body's way of saying, there is truth here. Look closer. Most people never do. They live their whole lives reacting, pointing fingers, blaming, shouting, never realizing that every reaction is just their own reflection screaming to be seen. They think they're fighting others, but they're really fighting themselves. The world becomes their mirror, and the more they deny their inner chaos, the louder the outer world seems to disturb them. That's why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The angry man believes life is unfair. The jealous woman believes everyone else is the problem, but both are trapped. Not by the world, but by what they refuse to face inside. To never be bothered by anyone doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you start understanding. You see the pattern. You notice your own reactions. You catch the moment before the explosion, and instead of defending, you observe. That's power, because the second you start observing your anger instead of feeding it, it begins to lose control over you. You're no longer the puppet of emotion. You become the witness. And the witness is untouchable. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror. Someone throws mud at it. You can waste your time screaming at the mirror, or you can wipe it clean and see clearly again. That's what awareness does. It doesn't stop people from being cruel. It just stops their cruelty from defining your state of mind. You can't stop stones from being thrown, but you can stop letting every ripple disturb your inner lake. Jung taught that emotional mastery begins with integration. When you face your own shadow, the parts you once hid, they lose their power to control you. You stop projecting. You stop overreacting. You stop being triggered by everyone and everything. Because you finally realize no one can make you angry. They can only touch what's already there. The real test isn't avoiding difficult people. The real test is meeting them and remaining yourself. Anyone can be calm when life is gentle. True peace is when you stand in the storm and remain unmoved. That's not suppression. That's self-mastery. It's not coldness, it's clarity. Because once you see that your reaction is your responsibility, you stop being a victim of the world. You start being the master of your mind. And when that happens, something changes inside you. The same insult that used to burn now sounds small. The same disrespect that once shattered you now feels irrelevant. You stop taking everything personally because you've stopped personalizing what others do. You realize that people act from their own shadows too, their own fears, wounds, and projections. You stop fighting them and start understanding them. And that understanding becomes your shield. Carl Jung believed that peace is not found in light alone. It's found when light meets shadow and no longer resists it. So when anger rises, don't push it away. Don't shame yourself for feeling it. Watch it, understand it, and let it pass through you. That's how you stop being reactive. That's how you stop being disturbed. That's how you become free. Because the person who has met his own darkness no longer fears the darkness of others. The person who has faced his shadow cannot be controlled by anyone. And that is how you never get angry or bothered by anyone again. We all have a secret desire, one we rarely admit. We want people to act the way we think they should, to respect us, to understand us, to behave the way we expect. And when they don't, we burn. We get angry. We get hurt. We feel powerless. But Carl Jung revealed something most people never see. Our obsession with controlling others is not about them. It's about our hidden fear of losing control over ourselves. Think about it. Every time you've said, "Why can't they just listen?" or "Why can't they change?" you were really saying, "Why can't the world reflect the image I want to see?" But the world isn't a mirror that obeys us. It's a mirror that reveals us. The people who frustrate you most are not obstacles. They're reflections of your unhealed attachment to control. And the harder you try to bend the world, the more it bends you. We think control gives us safety. We think if everyone just behaved, respected, agreed, or apologized, we'd be free. But Jung taught that control is the disguise of fear, the fear of facing the chaos within. The need to control others begins where self-trust ends. Because when you don't trust yourself to handle uncertainty, you try to control everything around you. And that's why people's behavior bothers you so deeply. Because their unpredictability reminds you that you're not in charge of life. Picture this. You're talking to someone you love. They say something careless, something that cuts deep. You feel your chest tighten. You want to correct them, teach them, fix them, anything but feel what you're feeling. That's control. It's the mind's way of saying, "I don't want to feel powerless, so I'll make them change instead." But here's the truth Jung discovered. You can't change anyone. You can only awaken yourself. Trying to control others is like trying to rearrange the reflection in the mirror instead of changing the face that looks into it. When you stop trying to fix people, something miraculous happens. You begin to see them as they are, not as your projections, but as whole human beings with their own shadows, wounds, and journeys. You stop arguing to be right and start observing to understand. You stop demanding and start accepting. And strangely, the less you try to change others, the more your own energy transforms the space around you. Because calm is contagious, presence is magnetic, peace doesn't need to shout. Jung said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you." When you don't know yourself deeply, you look to others to define you. You crave validation, agreement, and approval. And when they withhold it, anger rises. But when you finally begin to know yourself, truly, quietly, you stop needing anyone's permission to be at peace. You realize that control was never about love. It was about fear disguised as love. Fear that if people don't act the way you expect, you'll lose your worth, your safety, your identity. Look back at your life. Every time you've been drained by someone, a toxic friend, a stubborn parent, a careless partner, it wasn't because they had power over you. It was because you were trying to make them be what they refused to be. And that fight, that endless emotional tug of war, is the true source of exhaustion. Anger doesn't just come from others hurting you. It comes from you refusing to accept that you cannot control how they show up. Freedom begins where control ends. You might think letting go means giving up, that if you stop controlling, people will walk all over you. But that's a lie created by fear. Letting go doesn't mean allowing disrespect. It means enforcing boundaries without attachment. You no longer try to change people. You simply choose who you allow near you. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction comes from fear. Response comes from clarity. When you stop trying to control others, you start controlling yourself, your emotions, your focus, your peace. Imagine being in a room full of chaos. Everyone shouting, defending, proving. But you stand still, calm, silent, observing. That's not indifference. That's mastery. Because when you no longer need to control others, you stop being controlled by them. They can yell. You remain centered. They can lie. You remain truthful. They can walk away. You remain whole. That is the quiet power Jung called individuation, the moment when the self becomes whole enough to no longer depend on the behavior of others. Anger fades when you no longer expect others to be your mirror. Frustration disappears when you stop demanding that the world reflect your ideals. You start realizing, people are not here to please you. They are here to show you where you're still holding on. The man who disrespects you shows you your need for validation. The friend who lies teaches you how to trust your intuition. The person who ignores you teaches you how to give yourself attention. Life doesn't give you people to control. It gives you people to awaken you. So when someone offends you, ask yourself, what part of me is still trying to control this moment? The moment you see that clearly, your anger melts. Because anger can't survive awareness, and awareness shows you the truth. The only person you ever needed to master was yourself. Carl Jung believed that peace is not found by perfecting the world, but by integrating the parts of ourselves that demand perfection. The people who bother you most are not your enemies. They're your teachers. They're the ones pulling up your shadow, forcing you to see what you've been avoiding. So thank them, because every person who tests your patience is secretly showing you the path to your power. And once you see that, once you truly see it, you'll never be angry or bothered by anyone again, because you'll know they're not in control. You are. There comes a moment in every life when you finally get tired, not of people, but of reacting to them. You grow weary of giving your peace away to every careless word, every cold stare, every small act of disrespect. You start to realize that your anger doesn't hurt them. It only drains you. And that's when something ancient awakens inside. A longing not just for control, but for freedom. Carl Jung believed that true power begins where reaction ends. He called it the process of alchemy, turning emotional lead into psychological gold. And that transformation begins with one word: detachment. But detachment isn't coldness. It's not about becoming numb or indifferent. It's about seeing clearly without being consumed. Most people misunderstand it. They think being detached means not caring. But in truth, detachment means caring deeply without losing yourself. When someone insults you, mocks you, ignores you, the instinct is to defend, to fight back, to prove your worth. But that instinct belongs to the ego, not the soul. The ego survives on reaction. It feeds on every argument, every emotional spike, every "how dare they?" It convinces you that your peace depends on being right. But Jung knew, the moment you need to prove something, you've already lost your center. Detachment begins with awareness. When emotion rises, don't suppress it. Observe it. Notice how your body tightens. Notice the rush of thoughts, the story your mind starts to tell. This is unfair. They shouldn't have done that. I won't let them treat me like that. All of it. Noise from the ego's battlefield. You don't need to silence it. You just need to watch it. like a storm passing across the sky. The storm feels powerful, but it always passes, and beneath it, the sky was never harmed. That sky, that untouched space of awareness, is who you truly are. Every time you choose to observe instead of react, you alchemize pain into power. You take back the energy that was once scattered in every direction. You become centered, whole, untouchable, because what people say or do loses its ability to define you. Their energy no longer enters your system. That's the hidden secret of detachment. It doesn't push the world away. It simply stops the world from shaking your inner ground. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Detachment is how you make that darkness conscious. You stop running from discomfort and start seeing it for what it is, a messenger. Anger tells you there's a boundary crossed. Sadness tells you there's a wound unhealed. Fear tells you there's uncertainty you haven't accepted yet. You don't need to destroy these emotions. You need to understand them. Because every emotion, when fully understood, dissolves into wisdom. Think of a candle flame. If you try to fight it, it burns you. But if you watch it, you understand its rhythm, how it flickers, how it breathes. That's how detachment works. The flame of anger no longer blinds you. You begin to see its pattern, its cause, its meaning. And once you see, you no longer suffer blindly. You don't have to control your emotions. You only have to stop being controlled by them. There's a story of a monk who was insulted by a man in the village. Everyone expected him to react, to defend his honor. But the monk smiled and said, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to take it, who does it belong to?" The man was silent. The monk continued, "Then why should I accept your anger?" That is detachment, not weakness, not apathy, but power rooted in understanding. When you stop accepting other people's energy, you stop living in reaction to their chaos. And that's when real peace begins. It's easy to say, "I won't let them bother me." But real detachment isn't a declaration. It's a practice. It happens moment by moment. In every argument you choose not to enter. In every judgment you choose not to internalize. In every wound you choose to heal instead of hide. Every time you rise above reaction, you're teaching your unconscious that peace is your natural state, not conflict. And over time, something beautiful happens. The same situations that once triggered you no longer even touch you, because your awareness has grown wider than the problem itself. Jung described this as individuation, the process of becoming whole. It's the moment your inner self becomes stronger than the world around you. You stop trying to control outcomes. You stop chasing approval. You stop defending your worth, because you finally understand that nothing external can define something eternal. You were never reacting to the world. You were reacting to your own unconscious attachments, to validation, to power, to being seen. Once those dissolve, anger becomes unnecessary. Bothering becomes impossible. Detachment is the art of being deeply alive without being easily disturbed. You love people, but you don't need them to behave a certain way. You participate in life, but you don't cling to every outcome. You walk through chaos, but you carry stillness within you. That is freedom. That is the alchemy Jung spoke of, when your pain no longer poisons you but purifies you. You can't stop the world from being loud, but you can learn to listen in silence. You can't make people kinder, but you can choose not to let their unkindness enter your spirit. You can't change what they do, but you can decide who you become because of it. And that decision, that inner transformation, is the birth of power. Because when you master detachment, the same world that once bothered you becomes your greatest teacher. Carl Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes." Detachment is that awakening. It's the moment you stop dreaming that peace will come from others, and realize it has always lived within you. So when the world throws its chaos at you, When people test your patience, remember this. You are the observer, not the storm. You are the sky, not the clouds. You are awareness itself, vast, still, unshaken. And the person who remembers that never gets angry, never gets bothered, never loses themselves again. There comes a moment when you stop chasing peace and realize you already are peace. The noise of the world fades, not because it stopped shouting, but because you stopped listening with fear. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the self, the center of consciousness where all opposites unite, where shadow and light, anger and calm become one field of awareness. He called it the inner kingdom. And once you build it, nothing outside of you can ever rule you again. Most people live as emotional exiles. They build their sense of worth on fragile foundations, other people's approval, the success they can show, the image they can maintain. But the kingdom built on the opinions of others is always at war. One rumor, one rejection, one misunderstanding, and the walls collapse. That's why people are so easily disturbed, because their peace belongs to everything outside of them. The inner kingdom begins when you reclaim that power, when you finally say, "No one out there gets to decide how I feel in here." It's not arrogance. It's sovereignty, the quiet authority of someone who has mastered their own inner world. Jung taught that every human must meet their self, the wholeness beneath all masks, the consciousness that watches the actor on the stage of life. When you meet that self, you realize you were never the anger, you were never the fear, you were never even the name you defend so fiercely. You were the awareness behind it all, watching, witnessing, eternal. When you live from that awareness, people can no longer control you, because control only works on those who need something from others, validation, attention, respect. But when you've already given those things to yourself, the chains fall off. You can still love deeply, care passionately, work fiercely, but you do it without attachment. You no longer say, "I'll be happy when..." You say, "I'm already whole, even if nothing changes." That is the inner kingdom, freedom inside a world that thrives on reaction. Jung believed that this level of awareness is not reached by escaping life, but by living through it consciously. You don't find peace in a cave. You find it in traffic, in arguments, in heartbreak, when you remain centered no matter what happens. The world will still test you. People will still misunderstand you. Life will still bring uncertainty. But your response changes. You stop saying, "Why is this happening to me?" and start saying, "What is this teaching me?" Every challenge becomes a mirror, every conflict a lesson, every wound a doorway to strength. That's not positive thinking. That's psychological alchemy, turning suffering into wisdom. You begin to realize that anger isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. Each time something bothers you, it's life knocking on the door of your consciousness saying, "There's something here you haven't yet mastered." And when you open that door, when you look within instead of striking outward, you ascend one more level in your inner kingdom. People often ask, "How do I stop being triggered?" The answer isn't to avoid people. It's to know yourself so completely that no one can show you anything you haven't already accepted. If someone calls you selfish and you've already faced the parts of you that once were, you won't flinch. If someone disrespects you and you no longer seek respect from the outside, their words lose weight. If someone abandons you and you've already built home within yourself, you stay whole. That's what it means to become untouchable. Not because the world became gentle, but because you became grounded. Think of a mountain. Storms crash, lightning strikes, winds roar, but the mountain never moves. It doesn't fight the storm. It doesn't demand the sky to calm down. It simply stands. That's you. When your consciousness becomes solid, when your sense of self no longer sways with every emotional gust, you become still. And stillness is not emptiness. It's mastery. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are is not the noise, not the reactions, not the wounds. You are the awareness that holds it all, infinite, steady, observing. When you live from that truth, you don't suppress emotion, you transmute it. Anger turns into clarity. Sadness turns into compassion. Fear turns into wisdom. That is the alchemy of the soul. In the inner kingdom, forgiveness becomes natural, not because others deserve it, but because you refuse to carry their energy anymore. You stop drinking the poison of resentment. You stop chasing justice in the outer world and start finding peace in the inner one. You realize that every time you let go of a grudge, you make more space for your own light to grow. You no longer live reacting to what was,
but creating what is. So how do you never get angry or bothered by anyone again? You don't run from life. You don't build walls. You build depth. You make peace with your shadow, so no one else can use it against you. You stop controlling others and master the only kingdom that ever mattered. Your own mind. And when you do, the world changes. Not because it became easier, but because you became wiser.
You become like water, soft yet unstoppable, reflective yet untouchable. And people will feel it. They'll sense something different about you, a calm that cannot be shaken, a strength that doesn't need to prove itself. Because you've discovered what most never will, the power of inner sovereignty. Carl Jung once said, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insoluble. They can never be solved, only outgrown." You don't solve anger, you outgrow it. You don't defeat the world, you rise above it. You don't control life, you align with it. And when you finally do, you will walk through the noise of the world with the silence of someone who has seen their own soul. That silence, that still grounded awareness, is the sound of freedom. And that is how you never get angry, never get bothered, and never lose yourself again.